Hey freaks, it's JJ. Welcome to my channel where I talk about metal, rock music, and everything under the sun, but more specifically, I talk about concept albums and the stories that go along with some of my favorite bands and their music creations. So as most of you know, if you watch my channel for a long period of time, you know I love concept albums. I love to talk about the stories behind albums, and I love it when it has a fully fledged story that goes from beginning to end. But what do I do if I really love an album and it does not have a concept to it? Well, I create rock operas. So this is my very first rock opera that I wrote, beginning to end. It includes a whole entire story that goes track by track for the whole album. And so to start off with my endeavor for rock operas and writing concepts, I started out with Ghost. And so I am going to be doing all 4 of Ghost's albums, but where better to start than from the very beginning. I'm starting with Ghost's 2010 debut album, Opus Eponymous. And so I turned this album into kind of like my fan fiction version of what their rock opera would be. And so if you guys want to check that out before I give you any spoilers, please go down to the description and follow the link to get my free ebook on this rock opera. It's not very long, it's a pretty quick read, and I think it's a lot of fun. So if you want to check that out before I give spoilers, please do that. Go ahead and click away now. It is free. Since it is fan fiction, it will always be free. I will never be charging for it. Anyway, without further ado, here is my rock opera for Ghost's album Opus Eponymous and the story that I created to go along with it. So in creation of this rock opera, I did obviously read through the lyrics many times, but I also tried to take a lot of notes on interviews the band has done about what inspired them to create this album and what, kind of what their thought process was when they wrote it. So I incorporated a lot of that into my writing, but I also had, a lot of creative freedom with it as well. So hope you guys like it. So we're going to start off with track 1, which is chapter 1 in my little ebook called Duos Culpa. This is my introductory track where I introduce the protagonist for this little rock opera. His name is Gil. He is stumbling lost through the woods, drunk and high on some unknown drug. He is, starts off a little bit cavalier, not really sure what's going on. He's just kind of stumbling around. Vision's kind of blurry, can't really figure his way out of the woods. But as time goes on, he starts to feel a presence, and he feels like something is coming after him, so he starts running through the woods, running for his life from some unknown force that he can't see. He ends up finally popping out of the woods in front of a church and faints with relief. That brings us to chapter 2, Clavi Con Dio. In this chapter, Gil wakes up and he realizes he is chained to this altar in the middle of this church/monastery. He looks over and realizes there is another woman chained to a table alongside him. He tries to get some answers out of her, ask her some questions, what's going on, where they are, but she really only gives him this ominous answer of he's coming, he referring to the Antichrist. And so suddenly the monastery doors burst wide open and Papa Emeritus struts through along with his crew of nameless ghouls. Chapter 3, The Ritual. Papa Emeritus comes and tells Gil that he is to serve as the human sacrifice to bring about the coming of the Antichrist. Papa Knell is also introduced in this chapter, and he comes over and sets down a sack of old, mummified bones right next to the woman who's in prison next to Gil. Then that brings us to chapter 4, Elizabeth. Papa Emeritus leads the clergy in this seance-y type chant and ceremony that turns the ministry into this whirlpool of supernatural power. The wind picks up inside there and the bones disintegrate and they fly into the air. And as this tempest is going on inside the church, all this ash and disintegrated bones filters in through the woman that is shackled next to Gil. She wakes up, and we come to find out that she is now possessed with the spirit of Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Chapter 5, Stand By Him. So Elizabeth gets unshackled, she gets up, and she starts stripping naked and begins to dance. In the midst of this sensual seance-y type chant, Papa Emeritus leads the clergy to bring about this shadow into existence. Gil comes to find out that this beastly shadow being is actually Lucifer, and so by the end of this ceremony, the shadow kind of converges on Countess Bathory and kind of takes her down and knocks her to the floor. That brings us to chapter 6, Satan Prayer. After the shadow of Satan just kind of dissipates, Elizabeth Bathory is left laying on the ground and her stomach begins to grow at a really rapid and horrifying rate. She's now been impregnated with the spawn of Satan. Chapter 7, Death Knell. A bell tolls within the ministry, and Gil has this realization that if he hears the bell toll 6 times, he is going to meet death on the other side. And so the bell continues to toll 1, 2, 3, 4, and as this is going on, Countess Bathory's stomach is growing and growing. The demon insiders are like about to rip free, and the 6th bell tolls, and Papa Knell slices Gil's jugular, and he bleeds out all over Elizabeth and Papa Emeritus. So in Chapter 8, Prime Mover, Gil is dead. Elizabeth and Papa Emeritus are completely covered in his blood. Papa helps Elizabeth with the birth of the Antichrist, and so it just kind of starts to rip out of her, like the scene from Alien. Elizabeth's life is spared, however, from this horrific birth because she is able to absorb the life source of the blood of the human sacrifice. So she absorbs Gil's blood, and she is able to survive this horrific birth. Chapter 9, Genesis. This is the final chapter. The Antichrist has finally been born, and Papa Emeritus is so relieved. This is, like the culmination of his life's work, and he is so excited to finally retire in the countryside with Elizabeth at his side. So the ministry doors burst open again, and this time is Papa Emeritus 2, which is Papa Emeritus 1's little brother. And so he comes bursting in. Papa Emeritus 1 happily abdicates the throne for his younger brother. It is now Papa Emeritus 2's job to raise the Antichrist so that he can fulfill his satanic destiny. So, in my little ebook, I did include an epilogue, which is the bonus track to Opus Eponymous, which is a cover of the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun. So, if you want to see what happens in the epilogue, then go download the ebook and check it out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know what you think of this little rock opera that I made. If you had imagined something different going on during these songs, please let me know down in the comments and let me know what you think of this. If you want to get notified when I put out new videos such as this, then make sure you hit subscribe to my channel. Also, if you subscribe to my Metalhead newsletter, you would have gotten access to this rock opera a few days before I put it out to everyone. So if you want to get exclusive access to any new rock operas a few days before I put it out to the rest of the world, then go ahead and sign up for my newsletter. I also give out bonus content and talk about Metalhead news and everything rock and metal related. Don't forget to follow me on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and all that. Let me know what other rock and metal albums you wish had a concept that went along with it, or what other albums you want to see a full rock opera version of. I do have a ton of these planned already, but I do take requests. Let me know what other albums you wish to see covered in this fashion. Anyway, thanks for watching, freaks.